What's up, space pirates? This is your Admiral, the charmingly churlish Dr. Disaster, and the news that I'm about to report might get some people's hopes up that Square Enix is a company that listens to gamers, and I want to dispel that notion right away. If Square Enix knew what gamers wanted, their profile pic on X wouldn't look like this.
I find you repulsive in a way that's difficult to quantify.
Yeah, never forget that instead of focusing on making engaging material that people actually want to buy, Square Enix is pissing around with this garbage right here. We talked about this the other day, but Square Enix has gone out of their way to focus on Pride Month, and I don't want anyone to forget about it. This sort of crap right here is why a lot of people have given up on the Final Fantasy franchise, as sales for it have plummeted to around half the numbers they used to get. We see what they're up to and say, "So long, gay boy!" But that isn't the only reason, admittedly, that they are struggling with sales on Final Fantasy. One of the things that has prevented me from trying out Final Fantasy 16 as an example, even though I used to adore the franchise, is the fact that the gameplay no longer feels like a Final Fantasy game. We can talk day and night about cultural issues and about how the westernization of the stories for this Japanese company has damaged what they're doing, but Final Fantasy hasn't been the same since FF13 changed the combat system into something else.
There's no going back. You've changed things. Forever.
Well, from the sound of things, Square Enix is considering going back after seeing the immense success of Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Square, or at least one of their major investors, has finally realized that there is a market for turn-based combat. It's astonishing that it took anyone associated with this company this long to notice that there are people out there who like this stuff. But apparently, even Square Enix will notice something if it hits them right smack in the face. Hopefully, as soon as they saw Clair Obscur, they shouted out orders to their developers saying, "Send in the clown!" Alright, me hearties, make sure that you hit the like button on this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I've begun uploading some content over on Rumble as well, so make sure that you follow Dr. Disaster on that site too. But alright, let's take a look at what Square Enix is saying about turn-based combat now that Clair Obscur has shown that it still sells. The success of Clair Obscur has been incredibly impressive these past few months. They have sold a shitload of copies of their game, despite being just a small team with a AA budget. They have gotten incredible reviews from critics and gamers alike. For once, this is a game that has the vast majority of people agreeing that it's an incredible product. But if they manage to restore at least some semblance of sanity to Square Enix, who has made it a business priority seemingly to ignore the suggestions and feedback of gamers for the past decade or more, well, this might end up being the most monumental achievement of Clair Obscur by a wide margin. Now, I will say this, I understand that there is also a significant portion of the gaming population who doesn't care at all for turn-based combat, and that's okay. If you personally don't like turn-based, then no worries. I happen to not be a big fan of Souls-like gameplay. I play those games from time to time whenever I get the itch, but it's not my favorite. The important thing to recognize is that there is a market for various styles of gaming, and turn-based definitely has a sizable audience. You don't have to like it very much in order to recognize that there are lots of people who will buy it and recognize that it is synonymous with the Final Fantasy brand. When I see a Final Fantasy game, I immediately associate it with turn-based combat, and this hybrid turn-based and real-time action that we've seen in the past several years from the Final Fantasy brand, that just does not appeal to me at all. I've heard Endymion talk about Final Fantasy XVI and how that game is fun, and it has a really good story apparently, but I just can't get excited about it knowing that it's nothing like its predecessors. I'll probably eventually try it, and I'm sure that I'll like it when I do, but sales of this franchise have drooped quite a bit in the past decade. They used to sell 10 million units or more, no problem. Now they're struggling to limp to 4 million units sold, and the recent release of FF16 on Xbox saw them sell only 22,000 units, which is why we see this headline here. This comes from Insider Gaming, and it says at the bottom there, not many saw the outrageous success coming for Clair Obscur Expedition 33. The game had potential, but it's likely exceeded all expectations in 2025. So much so, a Square Enix investor is reportedly pushing for Square Enix to shift gears back to turn-based games, using Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest as examples. Final Fantasy hasn't been an overtly turn-based title in some time. You could argue Final Fantasy XII was the final game to embrace any proper turn-based elements. Since then, Square Enix has focused on creating more engaging, real-time action. This might not stay this way forever. Final Fantasy purists would probably love the return of a purely turn-based Final Fantasy game. According to a translated post from Genki, one Square Enix investor is pushing for the company to return to its roots. At the Square Enix shareholders meeting, one investor said they would like the new Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy games to be turn-based, and highlighted Expedition 33's success as an example, it's claimed. Now, keep in mind that in order to be invited to the shareholder meeting, this investor has to be someone of significance, so I assure you that Square Enix not only heard this person's plea, but they will definitely discuss it, and they damn well ought to. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 should be a wake-up call for this company. When that game released a few months back, I remember saying that Clair Obscur looked and felt an awful lot like Final Fantasy, and I said the only thing holding it back was its name. But just imagine how many copies it would have sold if it was the same exact game, but if it had the title of Final Fantasy XVII. Gamers would have freaked out, and the buzz would have been incredible. The ridiculous thing is that it took Clair Obscur to get these people's attention at Square. Where were they a few years ago when Baldur's Gate 3 came out and tore the gaming industry a new one, selling well over 15 million copies and being named Game of the Year while sporting a turn-based combat system? That should have been a massive clue that the gaming market is very open to this turn-based style. After all, Baldur's Gate released the same year as Final Fantasy XVI, and that game, FF16, has reportedly not even hit 4 million units sold yet. For a Final Fantasy title, that is pathetic, and a part of it is the way the company has put out shit like Forspoken as an example, really westernizing the hell out of what they make. That is part of what has driven people away. But another major part, I will contend, is that Square has been bound and determined to ensure that Final Fantasy is no longer turn-based. It feels like they're doing their best to chase after an audience beyond their core fans, but it hasn't worked out. They haven't attracted new players. They've simply shed old ones. The market has spoken for a while, and now their investors have spoken as well. Square Enix would be wise to listen. But I'm gonna leave it there. Do you think a switch to turn-based combat would improve sales numbers for the next Final Fantasy game? If not, then why not? Drop your thoughts into the comment section below, and we will talk there. Thanks for watching, me hearties. If you haven't already, your Admiral is inviting you to subscribe to the channel and become a part of the crew. Life as a space pirate may not be glamorous, but there's always plenty of booty.